So, as you can see, I've pressed the bushing farther in. I'm going to take the drive rail and see how it fits. And so, as you can see, it still slides nice and smooth. So it looks like I did a good job of keeping it straight. So that was actually the hardest and scariest part of the whole mod, is doing that. Because if it doesn't get lined up right, then it's not going to work particularly well. So take your time, do that part right, and you shouldn't have any problems. So the next step is basically just a bunch of cutting and grinding. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to just trim away this now extra piece of plastic all the way down to the face of the bushing, being careful not to actually damage the surface of the bushing, otherwise it might make a burr that will cause the drive rail to ride roughly. And then I'm going to use a drum sander in my Dremel tool to trim up this side like we had talked about, and then also to do this part. When trimming this down, the most important thing to do is twofold. One is to make sure that you don't accidentally cut the read-write head wires, and when you're grasping it, don't put any weird pressure or any side-to-side torque or anything on the top read-write head, or you'll knock it out of alignment. Otherwise, just go slow, take your time, and you'll be fine. So, as you can see, I've trimmed away the excess plastic from around this bushing. I've also trimmed the back edge of the right-hand side until it's pretty much flat with the screw head. And I've also cut a little bit of an arc in the back side of the Track Zero sensor actuator. It's very important that you don't mess up this edge or this end. You only need to take material off from here. As you can see, it makes a pretty good mess. So I'm going to take a few minutes and once again dust, blow, vacuum, spray with alcohol, and dry off this whole assembly. It's also useful to take these two screws off, which releases this plate, and this screw off, which releases this plate, in order to get in there and really clean. There's no critical alignments in there. Just make sure that you put everything back the way that it came apart. Okay, now that we've cleaned off everything, we've done all the mods to the head carriage assembly and to the chassis, it's time to start putting things back together. I needed to point out the final mod that you need to do to the head carriage, which is to put a little piece of, I use index card, but just a really thin, narrow piece of material that basically extends the Track Zero actuator so that when the head is in negative space, so that when the head is stepping negative, the Track Zero sensor is still blocked, and so it will still appear to be Track Zero. This is very important to make sure that the KryoFlux unit can calibrate itself, but also to make sure that you can reset the drive, and the drive will always go back to 0 when you plug it in. So once again, it's just a piece of index card, and I just use a hot glue. It works really well. This isn't load bearing. You just need to make sure that this sticks there, and it needs to be thin enough so that it won't interfere with the Track Zero sensor. So now that I've done that, the first thing to do is I'm going to put the drive rail back into the drive head carriage, and I like to put just a couple of drops, small drops of machine oil on the bushings, light machine oil, just to make sure that everything flows nice and smoothly. So when you put this thing back together, when the clamps onto the lead screw, you've got these little springy metal fingers in here. The lead screw needs to go between the fingers and the top metal piece, not between the fingers and the bottom plastic. So I just slide it in there, making sure that I line the fingers up right, and make sure that the top head goes above the lift bracket. And there you go. And just double check the fingers. Yep, they're underneath. So now we need to put the clamps in. Clamp and clamp. And I'm just going to put these screws in loosely for now, because we'll want to align the drive rail, get it where we want it. Here we go. I always go ahead and just push the drive rail all the way to the back. That's just where they seem to be. And just tighten the clamps down. As you tighten the clamps down, it'll push the rail against the chassis and align it. And then just make sure that you tighten the screws down good. You don't want these you don't want them coming undone. And so now you can use your finger and just turn the lead screw by hand, and you'll see the head moves back and forth pretty smoothly. So the next step is to put our cable cover back on. So just thread the cables through it. The cables go between the screw mount and the chassis. And you just want to make sure that you have the cable clamped in a good spot. If you look at the top of the plate, there's actually little lines molded into the clear plastic that kind of show you where it needs to be. But you can just double check by just holding it in place and making sure that the drive can go forward and back. See, I'm not totally happy with how that bunches up, so I'm going to pull just a little bit out and then run it back to the other end and make sure that it doesn't have any trouble reaching the other end. Yep, and it's so good, in fact, that I'm going to pull just a little bit more out. And then I'm going to use the screw that came out of it to hold it in place. And check it one more time, looks good there. And looks good there. All right, so the rest of the process involves the circuit board. So let's talk about this. So we need to do two things to the circuit board. The first is we need to cut the trace between pin 33 and its circuit. Pin 33 is on the circuit board, is connected to ground. And so you can see it right here. This is pin, if you look on this side, it says pin 34, pin 2, and they're not numbered on the back side, but it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth, through to 33 and 34. So this is 34, so that makes this one on the end here 33. So we just need to use a really sharp X-Acto knife and lightly just cut a little, just cut a tiny little section, just the tiniest little section off the end of off this end of this trace. Okay, so I've done just the tiniest cut, made sure that it's nice and clean, and that that pin 33 is not connected to the ground plane. Yep, and that looks good. So the other thing that we need to do is we need to take our bypass circuit and connect it in 3 places. One place it's going to connect is to pin 33, which we just disconnected from ground, and another place that it needs to connect to is the back side of TP8. TP8 is this little prong sticking out, and so you can see on the other side it's right here, and then the third place is on the back side of TP10, which is right there. Pin 33 connects to the resistor that's connected to the base of the transistor. TP8 connects to the resistor that is on the collector of the transistor, and TP10, which is actually ground, connects to the emitter of the transistor, which has no resistor in it. So at this point, I've built a bypass circuit, soldered it to the backside of the circuit board as appropriate, and reinstalled the circuit board into the drive chassis, making sure that the drive connections are in place, wires are routed smoothly, and the bypass circuit itself has been insulated and affixed to the drive chassis just to keep it from bouncing against anything and shorting out. The final step, after taking a moment to go over the drive and make sure that everything is clean, everything is where it should be on the drive, is to affix the safety shield, and that's about it.